Hello, I'm Channing, creator of the board game Galactic Era. In this video, I will explain a bit about the sectors in the game. So a sector is one of these tiles. You use these tiles as the playing area of the game, so you set them up flat on the table and like this, and you put them next to each other like this. They fit exactly into each other, and so they don't slide around too much because they sort of hook into each other. And I want to explain what makes what makes these sectors interesting for the game. I hope the artwork is nice. So there's a couple things about this sector. You always have a star in the center of this sector. The hexes where the stars are always a bit larger, so you have a bit more room to place spaceships and the population and things belonging to that star. The other hexes around it are smaller because you don't usually use those in the game. You have various space anomalies, so you have nebula hexes like this, which slows down movement or speeds it up if you start moving in there. You also have neutron stars, which are impassable unless you reach a very high propulsion level in the game. And you have asteroid fields like this, which are used for if you use them, then you can build more ships. Also, each star in the center that's where you place your home star, gives you a special bonus. In this case, it gives you level 2 in genetics if you start there. But there's other bonuses, like on this here, it gives you extra population, this star. And there are stars that give you extra ships or an extra action in the first round. These tiles are double-sided, so you have the stars in a different configuration. I use the same names on the back. And then different nebula. So one side, this is the B side, has more nebula. This is the A side, has usually a bit less nebula, but it's all differently arranged. So you have 9 of these sectors in the game, but if you count both sides, then you have effectively 18. You have a very large number of combinations you can do. Remember, you can place these in any orientation on the board, like this, and you only use a few of the 9 sectors, so you don't use them all. So the number of combinations alone of these goes into the billions. And so what makes the variability? Variability is also because you don't know, so what goes on, what types of stars these are is different in every game. You have uninhabited or primitive or advanced civilizations. What I noticed when making precursors of this type of game when I was very young, that it's very important that the random variability is not too big. So I made sure that, first of all, you have similar types, the same amount of types in the game. So like there's 3 different types, and if you have a 7-star sector, like this one, this is a 7-star sector. So the star in the center is 1 sector, and you have 6 remaining around. So there's 6 stars in your sector in this case, which are not your home star, and there's 3 types, so you have 2 of each type in your sector. That's very important because if it was completely random, then you could have sectors with lots of advanced, giving you an advantage if you were on the light side, or if you had sectors with lots of primitive civilizations, you would advantage if you were on the dark side, and it would be a disadvantage if you were on the wrong side. So I made sure that is balanced out by having the same amount of each type. In an 8-star sector, you just have 1 additional planet of the uninhabited type. Both alignments can use the uninhabited stars, so it doesn't matter to have 1 extra stars. Also, the maximum variation in number of stars is either 7 or 8. I didn't want to have sectors with lower number of stars or with higher number of stars, because then again that causes an imbalance. It's very important to keep the random variation quite low for the starting sector. In the center sector, it's a bit different. The variation is a bit higher, but that doesn't matter so much because that's later in the game. One thing that can be a bit lucky, so there's stars that are different range from the center sector. Each star has an icon, star icon, in different color. This indicates the range from the center star. So you have orange stars, which are range 2, yellow, which are range 3, and green, which are range 4. If it's range 1, it's red. So if your star that has range 4. Each sector has at least 1 star in range 4. And if that is the exact type you need, for example, if you're on the light side, that's an advanced civilization that gives you 3 population. You can take that star, and then you immediately get 3 population there. And if you have genetics at least 1, and then you grow population, it means you add 1 population. Because of natural growth, you get 1, so it goes from 3 to 4, and simultaneously you get 1 population from genetics, so that increases it to 5. So you can, if you're a bit lucky, you can get a 5 population star pretty early in the game, but that doesn't make such of a big advantage, because every time you use that extra action, it costs you 3 points, and other players can also get a 5-star population. So if your 3 population stars are somewhere else in the map, then it just takes you 1 additional action to bring that up to 5 population. So it isn't a huge advantage, but it's a bit of an advantage, especially if you're going in that direction. But then you need to research, have genetics, and so on. So it's one slight advantage you can have depending on the sector. Other important advantage you can have depending on the sector is the distance to your asteroid system. So almost every sector has at least 1 asteroid field. In this case, it's a bit harder for the player to get here, so he would have to move 1, 2, 3, 4. So he would need to have either propulsion 2 at the beginning of the game, or he'd need to use this D fleet. If you're a bit luckier, like in this sector, it's within the normal range of your sector, so you can get there in the first round, which is good if you're planning to build ships right away in the first round, which is a possible strategy. You don't have to build ships in the first round, but it is some stories support that, and sometimes it's a good idea to build extra ships in the round, because then you have more ships with which you can explore and go into the center sector depending on where it is. Also, sometimes, depending on the orientation of your sector, you can have lots of nebula, which is in the way to the center sector. So let's say I'm playing on this, and the center sector is up here, and this is where I'm starting, and this nebula would all be in the way of me getting to the center sector. Let's say like this. So I would have a hard time getting into the center sector. So in that case, you would focus more on your home star sector and do a home star strategy instead, which is entirely possible way to win. It would then also protect you, so it's not only a disadvantage of not being able to get into the center sector, it's also an advantage. So anybody who's coming from the center sector, you would be kind of protected from being invaded through the center at least. So it's both an advantage and a disadvantage of being cut off from the center sector. But as I said, you can still get there pretty easily. One way of getting around this is taking a star here or here, and then getting Stargate technology, and then you can just move around very easily. So it's usually only a hindrance in the early stages of the game. Another good thing about nebula is that you can use them as jumping board to get further. So they're kind of in the way, but they're also good for moving faster. So what you would do is, if you, let's say this was the situation, and you want to move very quickly into the center sector, say it's like this up here, you would move your ship into the nebula. So you go, let's say I have a movement range of 3 at the start of the game, and I want to get into the center sector, make it like this, very quickly. And obviously I could fly a ship to here with range 4 with using my D fleet. That's one possibility. Another possibility would be only to fly to here, 1, 2, 3, and then I would start my next move in the sector, and I would in a nebula, and I would get 2 extra movement range, and then I could move 5 in the next range like this, or even 6 if I had a D fleet. So then I can move really far in that one turn. So having nebula in your sector can be used as a kind of springboard to get even further in the following round. You just have to spend 1 turn in the nebula hex. Another thing, each sector has 2 numbers at the bottom. First of all, the number of stars, which is only 8 or 7, and then a number, which is the number of population you can get in the star if you do normal growth. So not counting adjacent hexes, not counting bonus population from genetics. So this star, for example, has a 24, and that means if you populate everything normally, the normal limits are 24. Some sectors have slightly higher numbers or lower numbers. This has 22, this sector, so slightly lower, but all sectors are balanced out by having, so sectors with lower population numbers are balanced out by having, for example, more favorable asteroid system location. So this has a very good asteroid location. You can get to it immediately, no problem. Nothing's in the way. It's within the normal range. Here, the asteroid system is a bit more difficult, so you need to get a 4 range, or it's even harder over here. It's really far away in the corner over here. But as I said, everything is balanced out. Also, an important factor which people may not be aware of are the neutron stars. So neutron stars are normally just simply impassable. You can't just travel through them unless you have propulsion 5 or higher. And in that case, you can actually use it as a stargate for travel. So another person could jump to this neutron star and then travel to the other stars here as a kind of invasion route. So with Stargate 2, I have to explain, you can use any non-hostile star as a star which you can jump your ships to. So what usually happens if somebody reaches level 5 in propulsion, they're a threat. They can just invade your home star sector, where you have stars which are normally unprotected with ships. And the counter tactic to that is to station a ship at every of your stars. If you're at war with that player cannot simply jump there because the Stargate movement is blocked. The only problem is if you have a neutron star in your sector and you don't have propulsion 5, then you can't station a ship there, which means that leaves an invasion route open for any player coming into your star. So it's kind of a danger, a possible danger. It doesn't happen too often to have a neutron star in your sector, especially near your home star. So that is also factored in the balance of the game. So for example, this star, this sector doesn't have any neutron star at all, and so it's protected from that kind of strategy, but it has a slight disadvantage with a slightly lower population number of only 22, and maybe the starting bonus isn't quite so great, but it has open spaces, so nothing's hindered here. And yeah, also another important thing we want to consider when populating your star is the order in which you populate your stars. So you see here stars which are very close to each other. So you see this star is right next to this star. If you would take this star first before taking that means this star here will not be able to grow very much. Or if you take them both simultaneously, then they would both prevent each other from growing for much. So that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is check out both of these stars, see which one is the star you want to have, and then only take the star you really want, preferably the one that's slightly further away, because that has growth, that has a range of 4 to your star, home star. That would be your nearest player-owned star, and that could potentially grow to 4 naturally. So without a bonus population, then you would only want to add the bonus population after that to make it grow above 4. But if you would populate these stars beforehand, that would limit the growth potential of this star, which is not what you want to do. So it's very important to consider the order in which you take the stars. The stars that are further away from other stars have less problems in that regard. Yeah, so that's what's to consider. Those are the various considerations of various sectors. So this sector also has very difficulty movement between the stars. So here it's very cut off between the sectors, but it has a decent starting technology with genetics. It has an asteroid field, and yeah, it has stars that are a good star here where you can get to a level 4 star. So that's so the situation can be quite different depending on what sector he has, but it's not extremely different. It's kind of subtle, and only really if you're getting deep into the strategy does it make a lot of difference what kind of sector you have. As I said, the variability is great. It's a huge astronomical number of combinations you can have with these stars. Yeah, so if you have any more questions on these sectors, also I'm planning to publish more sectors in expansion, so there always will be enough map variability. Okay, goodbye.